Wale, thank you. Thank you so much because, for you to be able to break it down and make, the very complex, fast-moving economic landscape and really distill it into something that we all can understand and it's super practical. It's really good. So thank you so much, Wale. One of the things I took away from your short, I won't say long, your short session is the fact that the economy is growing but the consumer has not yet felt it. And that's
Correct.
deep. It's deep because those two sentences just really shows how every brand needs to reshape and how businesses need to think differently, not just for the present, but even for things that are likely to come when the wallets open up. And they really need to rethink not only their 2026 strategy, but even their future strategy. So we have a lot of questions. I see people already dropping questions for Wole and Rotimi. I also have my questions, but then I'll be kind enough to allow people that have dropped their questions first to go. So yes, thank you to our fantastic audience. Thank you for the questions that are already coming in, and I'm going to open the floor to questions now. The first question is to you, Wole, and it's saying this is from Zoli. It says, "Is sachetization predominantly happening in food brands? Are beauty brands adopting the same principles? What do you think?"
Let me answer that. It's simple. Thanks for the question. So you'll notice one of the stats I shared is that Nigerians spend the bulk of their income on food. So yes, sachetization is happening mainly across the food brands. Primarily, 26 of their $50 that they are managing goes to food. That's 53%. Now, with the beauty brands, what they are doing is they are now adopting local brands, and which is what has exposed it. So there's this guy they call Very Dark Man, one of this guy that, is like a noisemaker. But what he has done, you'll notice there's a lot of brands that make all these local beauty brands, and they are not certified by the health authorities, regulatory authorities and stuff. So he keeps on, making a lot of noise around that. Now, that tells me something. While there's a lot of noise and people don't really see it, my job is to look through that. And what I've seen is that people are abandoning the very expensive, because you see, it's no longer affordable. The very expensive beauty brands, people are abandoning and looking for something local. In their search for something local, they're now beginning to, sort of buy fakes. So quality isn't entrenched in the things that people can afford within the beauty segment. But if the major brands, as an example, start to sachetize whatever it is they're doing, L'Oreal and all of those guys find ways to sachetize, they have a massive market for it here if they start to sachetize. So that's what's going on in response to your question.
Thank you. And then this question, I think you touched on it briefly, but I will still ask. It says and this is from SA, it says most of this consumer trend mostly apply to the FMCG category. What impact do they have in the fintech industry, lending, savings, and payments?
Oh, I mentioned that already if you
Mm,
were
yeah.
listening to me. So it applies to them as well. Now, what has happened in the lending, savings, payment, fintech industry is that all the fintech guys, you'll notice 80-90% of every fintech solution is about moving money from one person to the other, because that's seemingly where people see growth, you know. And the funny thing is there's growth there. The ICT industry that the fintech sits under is the fastest growing segment in Nigeria. It's growing at about 8%. It's faster than oil and gas, faster than agriculture, you
Hmm.
know. But the mistake that a lot of people are making with that segment is it's now becoming overcrowded, is getting too crowded. So you always want to lend to the end consumer. You want to, it's like a round tripping thing. It's that place is too crowded. There are too many people, everybody wants to do fintech, 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 fintech. What problem are you solving as a fintech person? So the first thing you need to realize is that when the man spends $26 per month on his food, what you're fighting for is his $24. Now, let me expand that fintech a bit. I mentioned that there are 20 billion. There's 20 billion that comes from Nigeria every year. Now, you'll notice there are a few fintech solutions that are sitting there to say, look, I can help you bring your monies into Nigeria. But the cost per dollar that comes in is still too high. In fact, it's the highest. and it still doesn't make any sense. So, as a fintech person, my advice, if you look into that space and you find ways to be able to repatriate monies into Nigeria at a cheaper rate, you'll become a billionaire overnight. So that will be my response to that. Because like I said, the opportunity is there. There's 20 billion coming from offshore. If you focus on just the UK market and there are a few players there already and say, look, guys, I can help you get monies into Nigeria at X% lower than, these guys. Obviously, there are all sorts of regulatory hurdles, that you need to face. But if you can do that, there's a lot of money. So in terms of a trend, that's where you can make money from. The fintech guys that can really create solutions for the $24 left in the average Nigerian spend wallet are the ones that will make money. You either look at that or you're looking at monies coming in, $20 billion per annum area. One of those two, you make a lot of money. The local transfer you see is already been, all of that is OPay, PalmPay, MoneyPoint, all these guys have sort of dominated that field. So people need to look elsewhere for where's the next greenfield opportunity? Where does it sit?
Thank you, Wally. Also, essay, so you see, it goes beyond lending, savings, and payments. Start
Mm.
thinking
Goes beyond.
remittances. Start
Yes,
thinking
right.
that. Okay, so Alima says that how do brands balance the need for affordability and quality? You want to be affordable and you still want to give quality product. Quality doesn't come cheap. Rotimi had mentioned consumers are spending on product that delivers on the expectation and quality. And I think, Rotimi, this question is for you. We need your video to be up.
Yeah. Okay.
How do you balance it? You want to be affordable, you still want to trade quality, you still want to be a quality brand, a quality product. What do you think?
Before Rotimi goes, let me
Hmm.
just respond to Halima. Halima, go to margincos.com. That is what I now do. The answer to your question is practical. If you go to margincos.com, your answer sits there. Just, browse it, and the answer sits there. Because affordability is around pricing, and quality is being able to do the right thing even at the right price. Go to margincos.com. Rotimi, go ahead, please.
Thank you, Wole. So I think brands balance affordability and quality by optimizing production and prioritizing what matters most to their customers, and using smart pricing strategies, right? So how do they do it? They cut cost in less noticeable areas. It could be packaging, it could be distribution, but they maintain the core product performance and reliability. So packaging may not be gang, but at least when it comes to that product performance and reliability, you are sure about it. And yes, consumers are willing to spend, but mainly on products that meet or exceed their expectations for quality and value. So if something feels worth the price, they'll buy it. If not, they'll quickly switch brands. Does that
Hmm.
answer Alima's question?
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. Consumers are still spending. That's the truth. They are still spending. They don't, like Wally said, half is going to food. So if you're in the FMCG, they'll still have to buy, they'll still have to eat. Consumers still needs to be alive, right? So they're still spending. And there's some basic things that are just important, like the basic attribute for each category. Just make sure you're meeting that and make it affordable. Right. The next question, I think we have a number of beauty guys in the house. Do you know the weight of
Yeah.
business of the informal market, such as international trade fairs, Balogun in the beauty and health business?
Amma wants consulting without paying for consulting. I can give you some headline numbers. The informal market in Nigeria carries the biggest weight any day, anytime. That's why distribution and channels are extremely big
Mm,
Nigeria. So I can tell you 80% of everything that gets sold passes through the informal market. 80%. So if you're thinking of doing anything within that segment, beauty, whatever it is, you're in the right space. Again, you just need to ensure you're selling at the right price. You're factoring in the pass-through inflation. You're ensuring that, you're able to pass it on to the consumer. You're running the right channel. So, and then if you're using distribution or you're using various distributors, you have to ensure that, they're the right distributors. But that is the largest market that you're sitting in. The
mm.
informal market is the largest in Nigeria.
Thank you, Wale. My next question will be to Rotimi. You know, you talked about the fact that happiness index had jumped. and we can see significant recovery. But how much of this increase do you think is driven by actual improvements, like in their living condition? Or is it just that Nigerians have lowered their expectations?
Nigerians and their ego better mentality. We can't do anything about that. We just have that resilient
Give me.
ego better. There's always that light at the end of the tunnel. So that is it. Have they lowered their expectations? I think over the years, a lot of Nigerians have, without knowing it. Even the supposedly educated ones amongst us, like it's always been this way. It will always be this way. So let's just accept it. It's a sad fact, but it's the truth.
Hmm. One more question for you, Rotimi. You mentioned that social media is like the third space.
Yes.
Um, Now that people are cutting costs, I,
Mhm.
Wale mentioned that 50% will go into food. It means that
Mhm.
internet will also get reduced priority, even though it's important, right? How then and you're saying that brands should be on social media, they should be on social media. People are cutting cost on internet. How should brand balance every digital investment, with the reality like that, the data cost remains a barrier. How should they balance that?
Well, speaking of data cost being a barrier, there are options out there. You can do a weekly data bundle. If you can't do a monthly data bundle, you can do daily data bundles. That's how many of these consumers are trying to do, making sure that they stay online. They can buy maybe a data bundle that offers them YouTube YouTube access for a certain amount of naira. So yes, data bundle is quite expensive, but they're still finding their way around it. And all the uh, you know, all the service providers have seen this and they're meeting that need.
Hmm.
So not
Thank
everybody's
you.
going to buy fiber optic. Not everybody's going to buy fiber optic or Starlink or whatever. Yeah. So
Thank
either
you.
ways,
My
brands
next
still.
question
Yeah.
is to Wale, and it's about the sachetization he has talked about, right? You gave that your phrase that what CFOs are approving and all of that. Does that mean that some brands are just subsidizing their own survival in the short term? I'm not done. And is there a risk that sachet pricing trains consumers in a way that makes it very hard to ever trade them back up? Is that risk there? That now that consumers are used to sachets, how easy will it be to train them to start to leave sachet? You know how powdered milk wasn't a thing before, and people were using evaporated milk or condensed milk. I don't even think there's condensed milk anymore. Do people even still use it? Now, almost everybody just do powdered milk. Powdered milk is now a staple in people's homes. And that's because it could be difficult to train consumers back. Do you see a risk in that?
So, you never put the cart before the horse, or else
Hmm.
you're wasting your time. There's certain trends in Nigeria that has come to stay. Let me tell you why. If you look at our demography, which is one of the things that a lot of people don't tend to look at, is in Nigeria demography. Let me share some stats. People within the ages of 0 and 23 form about 65% of this population. 0 and 23 years old are 65% of this population. So a lot of us talking here, we're in the minority already. What am I saying? In addition to them forming 65% of the population, they're also the broke part of the population. They're the dependents. Now, because they're broke, the only way you get across to the bulk of your population is via sachetization. You're seeing where I'm going with this. So if as a brand, you're saying you want to start training people back to, you want to start them to start trading upwards, the bulk of the population is broke. They are young, they're impressionable, and they like things on the go. So if that sachet milk is what helps them be on the go, the way you see all those who are alcoholics, you see all those sachet branded, terrible drinks that they drink. A lot of them
Hmm.
take it on the go. So training those kinds of people upwards is very difficult, extremely difficult. Once they're used to it as a brand, you must always check what is the trend. what are people doing now? Because you're talking as if Nigeria has become, say, Europe overnight, or the US overnight. It ain't happening. Over the next 5 to 10 years, sachetization will always be with us. We can't do anything about it. And it started when if you check historically, it started when, the downward trend and the spending pattern of the Nigeria started, where peak milk, I remember then, I'd never seen sachet milk. Some of us are old enough to know when it all started. I was shocked when I saw, I think it was Dano, or what is this milk back then? When I saw this
Cowbell.
cowbell,
Cowbell.
cowbell. When I saw the sachet, I was shocked that what is this? But then it has come to stay. That was many years ago. That's well over, say, 20 years or more now. So you can imagine that sort of trend. So for me, it's not going anywhere. It will always be part of a product bundle. As long as that particular population remain the largest, they remain the brokest, and their parents above them are still struggling with their $50 per day kind of spend. Excuse me, you're not trading anybody up. Manage as best as you can for what is going on within that environment. There's this psychological saying that says an individual is a function of the environment in which they find themselves.
True.
It's not the other way around. Yeah.
Thank you. And you just touched on the $50 per day, and Rise asking this question. You mentioned the $50 per day, including 53% for food. But how many people does this concern in Nigeria? Does this concern the middle class and upper class?
So Rai is going to let me share one slide. I hope I won't take time. Just one slide.
You have 2 minutes.
Yes,
2 minutes.
one slide. Just one slide. I just want to find it very, very, very quickly. If I can find it, you will see exactly the people
answer to our question.
Yes, he answers that question spectacularly well. Let me see if I can find it. I'll share. It's just one slide, and you'll see that a lot of us don't know what is going on in the country at large. I don't blame people for that, but there's a lot going on. It's loading. All my files sit in
the cloud.
Sit on the cloud. Yeah. So I just need to. I'm just trying to pull it out and see. Let me see if it is here. What I want to share is not here. Okay, let me tell you from my brain. So let me share data with you. In 2020, a study was done by the World Bank. So what I wanted to share is what I'm not going to tell you from, straight up. A data was shared by the World Bank. This was 2020, where they sort of broke down Nigeria into this. The top 1%, only 1% of Nigerians can spend $10 and above per day. That was $300 in 2020. As at 2020 exchange rates, that was around 450, 500,000. 1%. 1% of 220 million is still a large number, as I like to say. That's still 2.2 million. Interestingly. So you still feel there are a number of Nigerians that can do it. But if you remove 2.2 million from 220 million, you have circa 217 million people who fall into the lower middle class and the sort of the bottom of the range class. So the major concern of Nigeria is $50 per day. That concerns the bulk of Nigerians. And I know Ra will be a social media person just from what he's written. Because on the social media, everybody seems to be doing well, but the bulk of Nigerians are not doing well. Unfortunately, that's what some of us study on a daily basis. That's why we're very annoyed when we have a government that's not focused on that large and young and poor population. 0 to 23 are about 65% of this population. Some of them, a few of them do Yahoo, they make a lot of noise and you think it's a lot of people. It's not. We're an extremely poor nation. This is the reality. If you look at us as an aggregate, and brands who are doing business in Nigeria, even when you disaggregate it and say, look, I want to do business only in Lagos, there's only so much, of 2.2 million that you find in Lagos. Lagos is made up of 18, 20, 22 million people at any point in time. 2.2 million is spread across Nigeria. A good percentage may stay in Lagos, which is why there'll always be that distorted sort of figure. But yeah, what I'm talking about concerns the bulk of Nigerians, unfortunately. That's what it is. 2.2 million sits in the upper class that you stated. The middle class isn't any better either, a very small number. They're also struggling. The bulk of people sit on the lower side, and they're getting poorer, by the way, as well. Fuel is 1,325 naira. How many people can afford to fill full tanks these days? That gives you an indicator. A full tank is what? If you go to work every day, 1,325 full tank of 50 liters, you're spending something over 60K per week, 240K per month. How many people can do that? Few and far between. So that's where the challenge is with us as a people.
One last question for you, Wole, and that's where we'll stop all the questions.
Yeah.
I think it has to do with the side hustle economy. You talked about the fact that everyone is now having a first, second, third, fourth income stream. Does this variability of income makes it harder or easier for brands and, financial institutions to plan? They really can't plan because the other second, third, fourth income stream is not formal. It could be informal, right? Are there categories that are disproportionate capturing this irregular income stream? Like, how do they plan for these multiple income streams that people are having? Is there a way?
So, I talked about remittances.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of what powers those side hustles are remittances.
My uncle and I.
That's where a lot of those come from. So, your side hustle is not something you can really plan around. So as an example, if your side hustle is doing something at home, NEPA takes light, you have to go and buy fuel if the thing needs light in one shape or form to get it ready. You have to find a way to get past the cost of transportation that gets inflated overnight. You have to find a way to get past the cost of food that gets inflated overnight. It's really an economy you can't plan around, which is why you see when a lot of people go to Europe, US, whatever, they always tell you, oh, our lives are structured here. That's the difference. So even if you have a side hustle in the UK, US, wherever in Europe, you're a bit more structured. Some things are very orderly and planned. You can say, I need to get somewhere in 40 minutes. The bus will be there in 10 minutes. That bus will be there in 10 minutes. And you get to wherever you're going in 30 minutes. So 40 minutes total. You can plan. In Nigeria, you can't do that. Those are all of the things, the obstacles that face people. And people will continue to exist, in this, call it sort of, I don't even know what to call it, in this melee of events going on in Nigeria. We'll continue to exist. We'll continue to find ways to thrive within it. But planning, that's a very long shot. You just have to do the best you can within the situation. That's how I like to put it.
Thank you so much, Wole. And on that note, I think we can all agree that it has been an exceptional session.